She's a certified financial planner, author, and money therapist who brings a compassionate, whole person approach to the conversation about money. Her work explores how safety, stress, and early experiences shape our financial lives, and how healing those patterns can open us up to some greater ease and support and abundance. Welcome to the summit, Julie.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate being here.
I'm glad to have you. It sounds like you had a little bit of a journey to make your way here, but
That I did with negative 12 degrees in Chicago, and I'm shutting the schools down.
there you go. I was like, you know what? I saw the emails and some different things, and I thought the universe clearly meant us to be together today.
Right? And then it all got canceled. That was all scheduled. And I'm like, okay, it all works.
There you go. So, Julie, when you look at people's relationships with money, how often
hmm
do you see it really being about safety rather than the dollars?
It's always about safety. 100% of the time, it's about safety. It's about if you don't feel safe, we either work things out or we act it out, and we do it through our money, our health, or our relationships. And when we don't feel grounded, that's what happens to us.
Okay, so in your work, what are a few of the common survival signals that you see that show up specifically around money without people realizing that's even what's happening?
Well, I would say probably one of the more obvious ones that people see is the spending hangover that everybody has in January after the holidays.
Talk more
Because
about that.
it's about the fact that, we get on that high for the holidays. People are happy, joyful, and giving, and then they spend. And then in January, they get the credit card bill.
That makes
And then all of a
sense.
sudden they're like, oh, because then we feel it built up, feel good, joyful, and then we create contraction.
Mm,
And you can't receive when your nervous system is contracting.
that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So when you hear people say, I can't relax until I have more money, thoughts on
You
what
have
they,
to relax, and then you will get more money.
okay, so what may they be, could they be trying to protect themselves from something else when they say that, or?
I don't believe that they're necessarily protecting themselves. I think what it is that we don't realize that money is the result of how we're plugging into the world.
Talk
We
more
believe
about
that
that.
we believe we have to go get the money, go get the job, go get the opportunity, and then everything will be fine. But actually, it's the complete opposite. What it is that you need to, so the human heart, and science has proved this. An organization called heartmath.org has done all the research on this, that your heart is the biggest magnet on the planet. And if you want to attract more money as a result, you have to do the things that are in alignment with your heart, not your mind, not your anxieties, not your I'm supposed to do it this way because I'm a good girl, I'm a good boy, whatever that is that you're trying to still prove to your parents from your childhood. That's all hardwired into our amygdala. But it's about, I ask people, they're like, what's the smart financial decision? I'm like, well, which one makes you giggle more?
Ah,
And they're like, what? I go, well, which one does your heart want? I'll give you a great example of this. I
okay.
have a client who's part of the C suite and didn't grow up there, grew up on food stamps, came from
Ah,
nothing, came from nothing. And he just worked hard, went to a great Big Ten university, climbed the ranks, super smart computer engineer. And as he grew in his career, your left brain tells you, well, these are the boxes I have to check to be successful, right? Following the boxes. And he got the opportunity to be next in line for the C suite in his last job choice. Well, the two jobs before that, he actually chose the one that his brain actually said, okay, tactically, this is probably the right move, blah, blah, blah. But none of them followed his heart. This one, he actually followed his heart, and it's all expanding. He's got more money, bigger bonuses, because when you choose your heart, which is the biggest magnet, it raises your vibration, and then you attract more money, because you're opening yourself, when you follow your heart, you're opening yourself up to receive more. And so you get more promotions, more bonuses, bigger raises. Happens all the time.
So it's all about that capacity to receive.
Correct. And
Beautiful.
keeping your nervous system not hijacked. So if you're in a job where you have a boss who gives you anxieties, you need to get out of that job, because that's never going to give you the bonuses. It's never going to get you the pay raises, because your vibration is high anxiety.
Okay, that makes sense. So that's one of the ways people could tell the difference between truly a practical financial concern versus being in a fear loop.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So
We don't even real. One of the things that I can say to that is we've spent up to this point in our lives plugging into the world a certain way. And I believe most people feel like they've done it the right way. Like they always thought they were trying to do the right thing, right?
I would agree.
But what happens as we get older is we start to realize going, oh, I was plugging into the world based on my subconscious mind and my trauma or rejection from my childhood, as opposed to what my authentic self is. And once we start to become aware, what I always call this, it's like your midlife crisis. Your soul came in here to live a path, and say this is the path that your soul decided to come in. And then you have free choice to make your own decisions. And let's just say that path and those decisions put you in this trajectory and it's not really aligned with your soul. The bigger the separation between those two is, the bigger health crisis or the bigger financial crisis or the bigger relationship crisis you actually call in, because your soul is going, get back in a line, because you're meant to get in a line with why your soul came to the planet in the first place. And I have watched people call in these crises because they didn't shift when the signs were there along the way. But the question is, were we listening or hearing it?
So why do you think that some people miss those signs? Or are the signs, are they that obvious? Like, give an example of some of the signs someone may be seeing that they might miss, or sometimes they just may think that they're on the right path and they're not willing to pivot.
Well, I think we justify why we stay where we're at because we're comfortable. Because the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know. People are afraid in this day and age, because financially we've pigeonholed ourselves into lifestyles. We're afraid to jump off the ledge and take the next adventure. And we've created all these bills. The debt structure. See, if people would realize that when the Federal Reserve was created, it was about creating debt systems that actually control the masses. And if you realize that the economy, 70% of our economy is fueled by consumer spending. So if you look at our systems, do you think it's set up for us to spend a lot of money?
Yes.
Always, right? So the powers that be want to keep us spending so that it growth, but it keeps driving you to a job that works more than the 40-hour work week, gets you to keep paying the mortgage, the car payment, the student loan payments, the credit card payments, all these debt instruments that we've created, because they've made it so easy and so accessible that's why we don't continue to jump off the ledge and take the next adventure of really excites us in the life that we really actually want to live. So one of the practical tools that I constantly work with people is reducing their debt lines, because then you actually get control of your life and then you can guide it in the way that you really want it to be. So for an example, really practical example here is you're done paying off your car. There are these online savings accounts that you can open up as many as you want, and they pay really good interest, and you call it your car fund so that you start to become your own bank. And if you were paying $450 a month last month when you paid off your car, well, now pay it into your own savings account. So the next time you have to buy a car, because it's not if you're going to buy a next car, you're likely going to buy a next car, then you've built some money here. Most people do not do that. And I'm talking about multimillionaires that I have as clients don't do that. It's people who have high income and it's people who don't have high income. That is our system today. And you work super hard to pay the bank more interest. And that's how you lose control of actually being able to direct your life. And I think that's the biggest reason why people don't do it.
That makes total sense. It's we've given up our power through our finances.
Correct.
Okay, so if someone you talked about the CEO who grew up in a somewhat poverty, financial and stable situation,
Hmm.
what other kind of patterns do you see your clients bringing into them into their adulthood, even after their income increases based on what they experienced growing up?
Well, whatever is hardwired into your subconscious mind, those patterns keep repeating themselves. It's kind of like, think of it as when they say when you're divorced once, it's highly likely you're going to get divorced twice as well as three times. Because what it is that if you don't show up differently in the second marriage like you did in the first marriage, you're going to have the same results because you're not plugging into the world differently. A lot of people would like to blame something outside of themselves, their boss, their partner, their family. But it's really, if you made different choices and conscious choices that were different, then your world around you would actually show up differently. And we don't realize that a little tweak would actually do that. And so when you're on food stamps, as an example, that hardwires into you a scarcity mentality, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the patterns I see often with people is when they have that kind of a childhood, when they get bonuses, when they get tax returns, they go out and they blow that money so fast, or it's already spent before they ever get the money and it's sitting on credit cards for them to pay off. So I know to help them build the muscles in a different genre that I'm saying, okay, we want to get to the place where you're running and operating on a cash flow basis so that when you get that bonus, and depending on what level you are, that could be a $2,000 bonus or it could be the $1 million bonus that now in the C suite, right? Different bonuses, but same behaviors. It doesn't matter how many zeros. I see the same behaviors across the board depending on what your childhood was like, what the communication about money was, or no communication about money, and how there was struggle or was there abundance. People wouldn't think that children who are born with trust funds would have any challenges. The people who don't have money think that kids with trust funds wouldn't have any challenges. Theirs is even worse. They're actually so disconnected from money because they didn't work for it or build it. So they have no idea how to hold it. It's really fascinating to me to watch this patterning with people. So you either become a hoarder and you hold on to it because you think everything's going to fall apart because it did when you were a child, or you become this spend free cash flow and you just start like, when I get it, I got to get rid of it. Like, it's almost like you don't know how to hold money in abundance. So one of the exercises I actually give people is I want you to go to the bank and I want you to get $100 bill. And I want you to put it in your wallet and don't spend it under any circumstances whatsoever. Most people cannot do that. Benjamin Franklin on the front of a $100 bill starts like almost talking to you because you can't. It's like itchy scratchy because it's igniting something inside of you, but that's where the pattern is that's creating it. So that's why you have to just leave it there so you can feel the feelings of unrest inside of you, because that's what got stored in your system when you were a child. And those feelings just need to come up and out, and you need to feel that stuff that the little girl, little boy inside of you didn't feel when they were little, just so they could survive.
Okay, so it sounds like with your clients, like it's really both ends of the spectrum. So are there
Mhm.
like scarcity habits that people are doing fine on paper still carry in with them? Is there like
Well,
that
sure.
disconnect?
Again, yeah. So you work it out or you act it out through your money, your health, or your relationships. So let's
Okay.
just say somebody doesn't carry a lot of debt, cash flow, they're good, and they've built a ton of assets. I know to ask questions. How's your health? Meaning, like, they've probably got themselves so in order financially that they've ignored their physical body,
Ah,
right? Or they're on their third marriage, or they're estranged from their children, right? And what happens is when we act it out, let's just say financially, you think you have your act all together. People would say, as a financial planner, why would you ever ask those questions? I'm going, here's why. if your financial act's all together and you didn't tend to the other parts of your being, which is your health and your family and relationships, what happens is you're creating holes in your financial world, even though you don't think that you are, because you're creating leaky containers. So if you're not being part of the family structure and you're married and you had children, well, guess what? You're going to give half of it in a divorce someday. That's your leaky container. Half your money that you've built is going to go out the door. Not only with assets, but also alimony that you're going to pay. The same is true with your health. You're going to wind up paying a bunch of money to get healthy if you're not paying attention along that. So we either work things out or act it out through our money, our health, or our financials. I'm sorry, money, health, or relationships.
Okay,
And
so
so go
go
ahead.
ahead.
That's okay,
Talk
go ahead.
about some of the formulas that you've put together to help people get through all of these different
So it's a
conundrums.
Yeah, so it's about recognizing. So I want people to understand the reason we do this as humans is that there was some experience when you were a child before age 7. Every human goes through this. That experience either I had one client, it was in her mind, she knew exactly when it was. It was when her grandmother smacked her on the hand. Like she was disciplining her, just smacked her on the hand. So not severe. My trauma, if anyone's ever followed my story, I was sexually molested by a Catholic priest when I was 5 years old. So mine was significant and severe, whereas like my client's example, and anyone else can be somewhere in between that, right? So like mine as an example was that, and of course I chose to go in an industry that's mostly male dominant because I was dominated by a male, right? So I'm doing my work, standing in my power. I also have 8 brothers, right? Like my soul chose an interesting soup for me to do my soul work in. And so did yours, and so did everybody watching, right? And so whatever that was, so when I was 5 years old when that occurred, I didn't feel feelings in that moment because I didn't know how to process that. It was stuck. And I remember the day that I finally, because I had learned that the only way you get past this patterning that wired inside of you is by feeling the feelings that were stuck. And our emotions are energy in motion.
Right.
So we have to get them to move. Otherwise, the reason we get sick is that our emotions get stored in our body. And as we keep doing the same repetition in our patterning, whether it's through your money, your health, or your relationships, energetically, that energy getting stuck in our body builds in layers. And that's eventually what creates disease in our bodies. In all the research that I've done, that's how it works. So that's why I know that with a client, if I'm sitting there with you and I'm watching that it's acting on your health. So for example, 50% of my male clients between 55 and 65 years old have developed cancer around their hip area. And I remember the work that I did with Deepak Chopra, and I would say he would always talk about that a cancer cell develops because that cell has lost its sense of purpose. I was like, their cell lost its sense of purpose. So I started asking these guys, how did you lose your sense of purpose? And every single one of those clients were let go of their jobs, not by their choice.
Interesting. Wow.
And so I've started to see this patterning through the years. So now I know to ask men, like this C-suite gentleman I was talking about, when he was in his early 40s, I'm sitting there going, you better go to a job you like. You better go to a job you like, because I got these other guys 15 years ahead of you that are all getting sick because they're doing it to provide for their families, to make it for they're not doing it for the reasons that feed their heart and soul. They're doing it to provide for their families. And we need to combine the two. You need to provide for your family and get your heart and soul fed along the way. And that's for men and women. And the only way you do that is to choose what your heart wants above anything and anything else. But that takes courage. And it takes you doing your work, going through the stuff that you've not been willing to face up to this point. And when people don't want to face it, like I had 2 clients leave last spring, 2 men who very much so operating and health stuff was coming up. One had a cancer scare and they decided to leave my firm. And I know for a fact when people leave my firm, it's because they're not ready to do the work and I'm pressing the buttons. And that's okay. It's totally okay because we can all only do it in our own timing.
Right. You're only part of the formula. They have to
Right.
make a choice.
They have to step into it for sure.
Interesting. So what other kinds of things do you offer your clients that help them as they're working on these issues?
Well, so there's a financial practical side, right? So
Right?
I always have people go through their cash flows.
Okay.
And keep in mind, I don't call it a budget because when you say the word budget, it makes you feel like you don't have choice and you're not empowered. It's about saying, you're a bad girl, bad boy, you can't have that, right? And I
That's
want people to feel
interesting.
empowered, right? So
Mhm.
I want you to choose. Well, first of all, we look at how is your cash currently flowing? So let's just look at it. Don't judge it. Stay in neutral. Remember that nervous system needs to stay in neutral,
Right.
right? Don't judge it. Don't make excuses. You're going to provoke your shame, your guilt, and everything. When I start talking about somebody's cash flows, I'm almost naturally hijacking their nervous system because they're going to respond in some shame or guilt. Everybody always gives excuses why their money's doing what it's doing.
Well,
And
so talk
go
a
ahead.
little bit about the shame and the guilt that goes with that. Does that go back to more early experiences?
Yeah, it comes from their childhood, right? They think they're
Okay.
wrong for choosing what they're choosing because somebody along the way judged them and told them they were
Okay.
wrong,
Okay.
right? And
Yeah.
so now it's looping in your mind, right?
Okay.
And so it's about going, I'm going to give you an example. I had this husband and wife that came to me years ago, and the husband came in here. I'm here for a female financial planner because you need to tell my wife that she's ridiculous that she's buying $400 to $600 pair of jeans every single month. And I'm just sitting here going, okay, I would never buy that. Like that's not
Mm.
me. I would never buy jeans like that. But stay neutral, right? Don't judge her. He's clearly judging it, right?
Right.
And so if I stay neutral, I'm going, tell me what those jeans do for you. And she's like,
Okay.
so I'm seeking to understand before I want to be understood, right? Stephen
Yes.
Covey, that's one of his first things, right? And seeking to understand. And she goes, I'm in an industry where if I don't look the part and I'm not cutting edge,
Ah.
then I am looked down upon. And I'm aging in my industry, which is the advertising agency world. And I need to stay on that edge because I'm starting to get wrinkles on my face. And I sit there and I go,
Wow, that's
interesting.
a whole different
Whole
story.
different perspective as opposed to you irresponsible woman, stop buying $600 pairs of jeans, right?
Yeah.
And so I said, okay. I said, can we just stay neutral? I'm like, let me marinate on it. Because what I found is that people have their truths. They're not good. They're not bad. They're just truth. So we have to stay in neutrality on that too, right? And
Mhm.
I don't see the world through her eyes, but so what?
Right. So you're
So,
thinking that's a lot of money for a pair of jeans, and she's just trying to keep a job
right,
that pays a good salary.
right. And so I sat there and I'm going, but in a household, what's the best thing that you can do in a household? It's collaboration. It can't be his way
Ah.
or her way. There's got to be a mutual ground. And so when I was working on their financial plan and running the retirement analysis and looking at all that, all of a sudden it dawned on me going, oh man, she could turn around and sell those on eBay when she deems them too old and use that cash flow. We actually cut the amount in half because she turned around and she would sell them on eBay.
Wow.
And he was happy. She was happy. We found the place of neutrality for the two of them. And then guess what started to happen? Because there was no more push energy happening, she didn't want so many new jeans. She didn't want the
That's
guy telling her that he could control her
that's
because
wow.
that's what her dad did.
Wow.
Her dad controlled her mom, and there was no way in hell that she was going to allow a man to control her, particularly when she had her own career. That's a great example of how I interface with clients to find solutions that are collaborative because they have to be solutions from the heart. They cannot be
Mhm.
solutions from the egoic mind. And when we can find that state of neutrality and wholesomeness, then it leads everything.
That makes so much sense. I love how you have married the heart math with the finance. Can you just talk real quick a little bit about the heart math for people who aren't aware of it?
Sure. They did all this research and they have satellites on the end of the earth where they were like going, what are these magnetic forces of the earth are spiking? And then they looked, when they noticed it, it was in 9/11 when the Twin Towers came down. They go, why is the magnetic force of the earth 4.1 times its normal reading? And then they realized going, well, where are the other spikes? And it was the day Mother Teresa died. It was the day that Princess Diana died. And sad to say, but it was also the day that The Bachelor picked the woman he was going to date because it's the most world-renowned show. But it was the human heart. They noticed that when globally human hearts were activated, there was a spike in the magnetic force of the earth. So they've now done research on the human heart that the magnetic force of your mind, if you're only using your mind to solve something, it only goes for about 2.5 feet.
Okay.
But the magnetic force of your heart, they now know goes for over 8 miles, and they don't have a measurement tool farther than that.
Really, 8 miles?
8 miles. That's what all the research shows. It's kind of like if you think about it, if you're going to a network event or you're going into an event and you start to walk towards somebody and you're like, oh God, I got to go. Your heart is actually sensing that person's energy, whether you should abort or you should engage, because you're scanning the room. Your heart feels it all. That's the magnet that is guiding you in that. And I don't even know if most of us are conscious that that's actually what's happening.
I'm going to guess not.
Yeah. Something that we naturally do. But then when you start to realize that that's actually your most powerful tool, well, why would you stay in a job where you hate your boss, who's cutting your pay raises, your promotion opportunities? Because of fear, because we're afraid to jump off the ledge and we're afraid to step into our own personal courage that everything is going to be okay and you can trust it when you choose from your insides. That's why the subtitle of my first book, The Emotion Behind Money, is Building Wealth from the Inside Out, because it's your heart that has to lead the way. But we've been told that answers outside of ourselves are better because in our highly educated world, things outside of us are better than what our knowing is inside. And it's in all of our training and all of our formal education and everything. And that couldn't be further than the truth. Even though your knowing might be against the grain of what everything else is, it doesn't matter. I tell people all the time, what you need to do is let your freak flag fly. You need to be exactly who you came here to be, because then you'll get more money, more love, more opportunities. Everything else will fall into alignment because you will be supported if you're showing up as your authentic self. If you're having a really rough time and things are not working out for you, it's because you're not aligned with yourself. You've negotiated yourself away on some level and you're allowing the world to whipsaw you. I'll give you an example. Donald Trump is a great example of this. I certainly do not want to get into politics. I have a lot of very good people, clients, that really were upset about Donald Trump being in the White House. And not good nor bad, but the conversation I had with them was, why are you going to allow yourself today to not enjoy your life, not do what you want to do, because you're joining then all the frustration. You're pulling your vibration down because you're so frustrated about this external thing that's not inside of you. And I need you to be you and go be a great part of you, because we don't understand that we are an energy grid as a human race. And it's important for you to be the brightest light that you can possibly be. So you're holding the container for everybody else to be a bright light, as opposed to being a pile of poop like the other pile of poop. And I know that's simplifying it a lot, but when we start to realize, like I had one client going, well, I can't stay here. She's a medical doctor and she's an OB and she's so upset about what's going on in Texas. Okay, that's her feeling. That's her truth. And I said, well, what do you want to do about it? But you sitting here complaining about it all the time is not going to make you a happy person. It's certainly not going to make you healthy. You're going to get sick. You are so upset about this. You are going to get sick because she spent 35 years giving her life to women's health, right? And she felt like it went backwards in the state of Texas. You know what she did? She took a sabbatical for a year. She moved out of the country. She went to Italy to her cousin's property that was her great grandparents in Italy. And she's now becoming a physician in culinary medicine. She's completely shifting to something that makes her completely happy, joyful. And while things were shaking out in the United States, she got out.
And she's making a big difference in a different
And
area, but
she's
the same
happy.
area. And
Right.
she's happy.
She's happy. She's going to add years to her life because she decided to align with her internal truth. She's not going to control Donald Trump. And I'm not here to say whether you like him, you don't like, I don't care. This is her truth. And I'm sharing that story because she chose to be happy regardless, instead of making herself sick over it all.
Well, I appreciate that you picked probably one of the most polarizing topics, definitely in the United States, if not the world, but you discussed it in a way that wasn't polarizing, and in a way that people could integrate that into a sense of peace for themselves.
Thank
So
you.
it's fascinating to me that, like, your business is finance.
Right?
But what you're doing, it's just in the finance bucket because all these things are running down the same path parallel. One
Correct.
is no different than the other.
Right.
That's just how you choose to support yourself.
Correct.
But in the meantime, you're doing a whole lot of other coaching and helping
Yeah.
people move along.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Because if you think about it, all those other things are integrated with your money.
It's all
If she didn't figure out the money part of how to go move to Italy and be on a sabbatical, like I told her, well, go look in your employee documents and negotiate that you're able to get out of your current contract for a year. Like, that's how it's integrated with your money.
Yeah, that makes so
Right?
much sense.
But if she didn't listen to me all these years in terms of reduce your debt, create financial space, don't have huge don't have every dime coming in go out.
Right.
She wouldn't have had the space to be able to do that. But she's been a client for about 20 years and she listened. Some listen, some don't. Some do partial, some don't. But then it's your journey and that's okay because you can only hear what you can hear when you can hear it.
That's right. Doesn't mean that they don't hear it 10 years from now after they stepped away.
Exactly. Right.
So as we're going to wind down a little bit, talk a little bit. I would love to end on the debt part because I think that that's really important. And I've heard you speak on debt before in a way that people don't really recognize how it's controlling us in a bigger level and some of the things that you have to offer there.
Sure. From a debt structure, we've given up our personal power because we have debt. And people say, well, I have my house, but I have to have my mortgage. Well, that just means that you have to wake up and you have to go do a job because of the financial commitments that you've created in your world. And I went on Capitol Hill a few years back and I was on this panel for retirement planning. And one of these congressmen from the South said, how do we get Americans to start saving more for retirement? And I said, and they asked all the experts, the financial people, and I was the last one on the end. And I said, you're asking the wrong question. And they said, how am I asking the wrong question? I said, people can't even live in the present moment because of all their past financial choices and the debt structures they have, let alone even think about planning for retirement. We're having such a challenge living in the now. And we don't realize it's our debt structures that have created that. So you have nothing but your current reality. Don't judge yourself. Just put it to paper. So like I have worksheets and I'm actually doing a workshop next Thursday at 12 p.m. Central.
Oh.
And you just have to go to juliemurphy.com, sign up. It's free. So I can help people start to go, okay, here's your reality. How do I get you to this next place? Because when you write down your reality, and these are your debt structures, and I have worksheets to help people do that right on my website for free. You can just download them. You list out the debts, you list out the interest rates, the minimum payments, what you normally pay, and you say, okay, and then you come up with a game plan. Like I have these examples in my books of how to then deal with the current reality. And then when one of those debt structures open up, like the car example that I gave earlier, then you intentionally redirect that payment so that you're no longer playing financial defense with it and playing debt, and you shift it to offense. So then you start to turn the corner and you're building a muscle to have financials in a different direction. Because we all wish, everyone like, well, I wish I just win the lottery and then pay off all my debt. You know what? That's not going to happen for most people.
Right.
Every day, the little bits, the little pieces. If your credit score is terrible, okay, well, start paying your things on time and start paying the minimums on things and start to clean it up, right? Because people will declare bankruptcy to try to clean the slate, but that doesn't fix it because you haven't changed your patterning. You haven't built the muscles to be financially abundant. No different than someone who wins the lottery usually is gone all the money within the next 5 years because they don't know how to hold money in abundance and it just goes out the door. No different than big bonuses that come from your employer go right out the door. So this is about building your financial structure based on your intentions and your heart's desires. I ask people all the time, what do you think of vacation? Oh, I'd love to go on more vacations. Everybody always says that to me. I go, what savings account do you have set up to go on those vacations? No one ever has one. Well, if you want to go on them, you need to start putting money every month into the vacation fund. Because you don't go into it because you don't intend for that to happen and you don't have a financial bucket set up for that intention. And don't combine them. Don't put the car with the vacation with the emergency funds because then it gets all gunked up. Name it and separate it because those are your desires, your goals. It's like I really wanted a boat when I was in my 20s. I started putting $10 a month into a boat fund. And then I figured out, I want a sailboat. So I changed the name to sailboat. And by that time, I was putting like $250 because every pay raise, I increased what I was putting in there. And then I was like, I want a 34-foot Beneteau. And by the time I bought the boat, I was putting $1,600 a month in there. It took me 10 years, but I found a friend with the boat in the meantime. But then I bought a boat. I had a sailboat. I had a 34-foot Beneteau.
Good for you. I love it. I love how you did it. The process.
It's all with intent. It's all with intention.
Thank you for bringing so much humanity and clarity to this topic. It's a difficult topic for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
It's deeply personal. Your perspective really helps reframe the money, and it's not as something to fear or to force, as you talked about.
Right.
It really, I love the heart connection, and I love the heart connection because that is the connection. To learn more about Julie and her work, you can go to her website, juliemurphy.com, and talk about that workshop once more.
Absolutely. So I just do a workshop to help we get on there and you can ask me any question that you want to help you get out of the current scenario you have. And we just keep flying around and helping you get to there. And I'll teach a little bit more of my nuggets. And it's next Thursday at noon Central Time. And you can just go to juliemurphy.com to sign up.
Thank you. I appreciate you so much. Thanks for joining the summit.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.